The fluorescent lights in the community center buzzed like angry wasps. I watched Margaret, call me Madam President, Whitfield adjust her polyester blazer for the third time. Her face had the color and texture of an overripe tomato, and her hands trembled slightly as she clutched a manila folder thick enough to choke a horse. "Ladies and gentlemen of the HOA board," she began, her voice cracking like a 13-year-old boy's, "we are here today to discuss the situation with Ms. Rodriguez and her alleged service animal. Alleged. Margaret. Sweet. Delusional. Margaret. If only you knew what was coming." I sat in the back row, my golden retriever Luna resting peacefully at my feet, her service dog vest gleaming under those harsh lights. The irony wasn't lost on me. Here we were, in the very room where Margaret had crowned herself Queen of Sunset Meadows HOA, about to watch her empire crumble like a house of cards in a hurricane. But let me back up. Let me tell you how we got here. 3 months ago, I moved into Sunset Meadows with Luna, my certified service dog who helps manage my PTSD episodes. I'd done my homework, checked all the fair housing laws, had my documentation ready, even called ahead to inform the property management company about Luna's presence. What I hadn't counted on was Margaret Whitfield. Margaret was the kind of woman who considered herself the unofficial mayor of our little suburban kingdom. She'd been HOA president for 6 years running, not because anyone particularly liked her, but because she was the only one willing to spend her retirement harassing neighbors about mailbox colors and grass height. The first time I met her, she was standing in my doorway like a polyester-clad gargoyle, clipboard in hand, smile faker than a $3 bill. "Welcome to the neighborhood, dear," she'd said, her voice dripping with artificial sweetness. "I'm Margaret Whitfield, HOA president. I noticed you have a dog," she said. "Dog, the way most people say cockroach infestation. Luna's my service dog," I explained patiently, showing her Luna's vest and credentials. "She's legally allowed to live here under the Fair Housing Act." Margaret's smile tightened like a plastic bag around a vacuum cleaner. "Oh, I'm sure she is, honey, but we have rules here. Very important rules about pets. Service dogs aren't pets under federal law," I replied, keeping my voice level. "They're medical equipment." That's when I saw the flash of pure rage in her beady little eyes. Margaret Whitfield didn't like being corrected, especially not by someone half her age who knew more about the law than she did. "We'll see about that," she muttered, scribbling something on her clipboard with the fury of a woman writing her ex-husband's name on a voodoo doll. What followed was 3 months of psychological warfare disguised as community standards enforcement. First came the noise complaints. Apparently, Luna's excessive barking was disturbing the peace. Never mind that Luna was trained not to bark and had never made a sound louder than a contented sigh. Margaret filed complaints every other day, each one more creative than the last. Then came the safety concerns. Margaret claimed Luna was aggressive and threatening to other residents. The evidence: a photo of Luna sleeping on my porch, which Margaret had apparently taken from her kitchen window with a telephoto lens like some sort of suburban paparazzi. But Margaret's masterpiece was the health department violation report. She claimed Luna was leaving biological hazards on common property. The fact that I always cleaned up after Luna and had security camera footage proving it seemed irrelevant to our dear president. Each complaint was carefully crafted to sound official, stamped with the HOA seal, and sent to every resident in the complex. Margaret was building a case, one fabricated document at a time. I let her dig her own grave. The breaking point came on a Tuesday morning in October. I was walking Luna around the complex when Margaret appeared from behind a maintenance shed like a villain in a bad horror movie. "You!" she shrieked, pointing at me with a finger that looked like an angry sausage. "You and that mutt are destroying our property values." Luna, bless her heart, didn't even flinch. She just sat down and looked at Margaret with the kind of patient expression usually reserved for toddlers having tantrums. "Margaret, Luna is a service dog," I said for what felt like the 100th time. "She has every right to be here. Not if she's not really a service dog? Margaret shot back, her voice rising to a pitch that could shatter wine glasses. I've done my research. I know about fake service dogs. And I'm going to expose you. That's when she pulled out the spray bottle. Margaret, what are you doing? I asked, though I already knew where this was heading. If this dog is really trained, it won't react to a little water, she declared, aiming the bottle at Luna like she was about to perform some sort of twisted science experiment. Don't you dare. Too late. Margaret squeezed the trigger, sending a stream of liquid directly into Luna's face. Luna jerked back, whimpering softly, not from pain, but from surprise. The liquid wasn't water. It was some sort of citrus-scented cleaning solution that made Luna's eyes water and her nose run. And Margaret looked absolutely delighted. See, she crowed, a real service dog wouldn't have reacted. This proves she's a fake. That's when I smiled, really smiled. For the first time in 3 months. Margaret, I said softly, do you know what you just did? I exposed a fraud, she declared triumphantly. No, I replied, pulling out my phone. You just committed a federal crime. The look on Margaret's face was priceless, pure confusion mixed with dawning horror, like a person slowly realizing they just stepped in quicksand. What are you talking about? She stammered. Interfering with a service dog is a federal offense under the Americans with Disabilities Act, I explained calmly. Assault on a service dog can result in fines up to $75,000 and up to 1 year in prison. Margaret's face went through several color changes, red to white to green to a shade of yellow I'd never seen on a human being before. You can't prove anything, she sputtered. I held up my phone. I've been recording our interactions for 3 months. Margaret. Every harassment, every false complaint, every threat. But this is the crown jewel. The video was crystal clear. Margaret approaching aggressively, me warning her not to spray Luna. Margaret deliberately spraying what was clearly a marked service dog, and then her gleeful confession about trying to expose Luna. You single quotes re ... You're bluffing, Margaret whispered, but her voice had all the conviction of a deflated balloon. Am I? I asked, already dialing 911. Hi. Yes. I'd like to report an assault on a federal service dog ... double quotes, which brings us back to today. The HOA hearing that was supposed to be about my violation of pet policies, the police had arrived within minutes that Tuesday morning. Margaret had been arrested on the spot, still clutching her spray bottle like a confused toddler with a broken toy. The charges were filed within hours: interference with a service animal, assault, and harassment. But the real kicker: the cleaning solution Margaret had used contained chemicals that were toxic to dogs. What she thought was a harmless prank had actually been animal cruelty. The board members shifted uncomfortably in their seats as I stood up, Luna by my side, and addressed the room. I believe Margaret called this meeting to discuss my alleged service dog. I began, my voice carrying clearly through the silent room. Unfortunately, she won't be joining us today. She's currently in county jail, facing federal charges for assaulting a service animal. I placed a thick folder on the table, thicker than Margaret's had been. This contains 3 months of documentation. Every false complaint, every harassment incident, every violation of fair housing law. My attorney will be reviewing each incident for potential civil rights violations. The board president, Margaret's former lieutenant, looked like he was about to be sick. Furthermore, I continued, I've been in contact with the state attorney general's office about systemic discrimination in this HOA. They're very interested in Margaret's creative interpretation of federal law. I turned to address the room full of residents, many of whom had received Margaret's poison pen letters about Luna and me. For those of you who believed Margaret's lies about Luna being a fake service dog, I hope today has been educational. Service dogs are protected by federal law, period. They're not pets, they're medical equipment, and anyone who interferes with them faces serious criminal charges. I paused, savoring the moment. As for Margaret, she have plenty of time to read up on the Americans with Disabilities Act. The jail library has an excellent legal section. I gathered my papers, attached Luna's leash, and headed for the door. The silence was deafening. "Oh," I said, turning back one last time, "the new HOA president might want to schedule some mandatory training on fair housing laws. I'd hate for anyone else to make Margaret's mistake." As I walked out, I heard the whispered conversation starting behind me. Margaret's reign of terror was over, and everyone knew it. Luna looked up at me as we stepped into the sunshine, her tail wagging slightly. "Justice tastes pretty sweet, doesn't it, girl?" I murmured. And somewhere in county jail, Margaret Whitfield was probably wondering how a simple spray bottle had destroyed her entire kingdom. Should have read the fine print. Margaret?